Hey Fixsters, and welcome to this video where I want to discuss a very interesting topic with you, that is filtering in Python. So given a list, say of some elements like 8, 2, 6, some elements, 3, 1, and now I have to use a square bracket notation. Okay, so now we have the list, and now we want to filter out all elements that are, say, smaller than 8. Okay, or smaller than 7, say all elements that are smaller than 7. Okay, and how do we do this? Basically, we create, so there are two main ways of doing it. The first way is using the filter function, and the second way is to use list comprehension. And list comprehension is actually the more Pythonic and better way to do this, and therefore I will start with the list comprehension way, and then I will just show you the filter function as well, so that you know both ways. And okay, so so our goal is to have a filtered list, and we use list comprehension to do this. As you may know, list comprehension is a means of creating a new list based on an iterable of values, and it consists of two parts. The first is the expression part, the second is the context part. What is our context? So basically, let's start with the expression. The expression is just x, and our context is for x in list. Okay, so this is like if you would do just that, then basically we add all elements in the original list LST, which is this one, to our list filtered. But now we want to do some filtering, right? We don't want to add all elements, but only some elements that meet a certain condition. And how can you do this? Basically, you just add an if condition statement here. And the condition, then, this is basically also only a placeholder, so you can replace with any condition on the variable x you would like to have. Okay, so x takes on all values in the original list LST. So first it takes on 8, then it takes on 2, 6, 4, 3, 1. Okay, so it takes on all these values. And how can we do this? Basically, you can, for example, write x is larger than 7, smaller than 7. Okay, so this is our condition now. So we only include an element x if it is in the list. So we go over all elements in the list, and if it is smaller than 7. Okay, and if you print this, then we get the result 2, 6, 4, 3, 1. Okay, so all elements are smaller than 7. You can also have more complicated conditions like and x is larger than say 1. Okay, so now if you would do this, then we would get rid of the 1 as well, because we require that it's also larger than 1, and so on. Okay, so you can have an arbitrary complicated condition here. And so this is a general framework for filtering. It works beautifully for all different kinds of conditions. And now you can even, if you have very complicated conditions, you can even create a function condition, and you pass the element x, and say you create condition element, and now you can do some complicated stuff here. Yeah, so you can return like a Boolean value based on the let's just call this x, and you can return a Boolean value based on the complicated filtering condition. You can even you can check whether it's a prime number, or whether you can do all complicated stuff on a list element to determine whether you should add it to the filtered list or not. Okay, and therefore this is the most powerful way to do filtering, and it's the most Pythonic way, because this list comprehension is a nice way, because it allows you to create a list in place within a single statement that is very readable, and also very efficiently implemented in the CPython underlying library. So Python is based on C++, and the CPython implementation basically has defined all these complicated functions for list comprehension, and all the built-in functions are implemented in C++. So it's very efficient. So list comprehension is a very efficient way to create lists, and therefore it's my preferred way to filter a list. Okay, so you just have the expression, the context part. You just add an if statement to restrict the context of the elements you want to include in the list a bit. Okay, so I promised you a second way to do some filtering. You can also write filtered. You can use the filter function. The filter function takes a function itself. This is a filtering function, and this filtering function then that is passed as an argument should take one argument, which is the element for which we want to decide whether to filter it, and it returns a true or a false value. So basically the filter function can be our function condition, for example. Yeah. So, but you can also define it in place with a lambda function. Lambda function is an anonymous function without a name, so it has no name in the namespace in Python, and you just have an argument x, and you basically map this argument x to the return value, to the Boolean value, for example, which can be any condition like x larger 7, for example, and x smaller 7, for example, and then you need to pass the iterable, which you want to filter, which is our list. And if you then just print this, then you will see that it returns a filter object. But we don't want to have a filter object. We want to have a list, basically. So we have to convert this to a list as well using the filter function. And you can already see there's some conversion happening, and it's not more powerful, but it's a bit more complicated. You have to pass the anonymous function and so on. You cannot just pass the simple condition as you can here. So here you can just write x smaller 7, and that's it. So you don't actually need to create a new function. But for the filter function you need to create a new filter function, and you need to like have a function call. You don't exactly know what happens inside the function call, so it's a bit less readable in my opinion, but many people will still use the filter function because it's like Nomen est Omen. They will see, okay, I need to filter something, so they Google filter and then they find the filter function, so they use it. But actually the more Pythonic way is to use list comprehension, and any expert coder will actually prefer list comprehension for this statement. It's more concise, consists of less characters, and it's also faster. So let's just, I'll show you that it's really faster. I've made a small experiment. Let me just quickly get the code so that you don't have to wait for me to really type in the code. Okay, so I will just copy paste the code here and show you that it's faster. Okay, and here you see I create lists of different sizes, and then I go over all list sizes, and each time I measure the time. So this is the start time. Then I do the filter. Then I use the filter function. Yeah, so I filter out all elements from a list that are odd. So all odd elements. And here I also filter out all odd elements with the list comprehension statement. So I used both statements, the filtering operation and the list comprehension, and I measured the elapsed runtime. And then I just add the runtime to some variables that I later plot and print to the shell. But now I did this for very large values. For very large values, so I will just make it make it a bit faster. And then I iterate this 10 times in both cases to have some more, to have some prettier output. Otherwise, it will be a bit chaotic because, if you repeat an element only once, then of course it will be a bit, it will have a high variance. Okay, so I just reduce the variance and now I execute this, and you can see it still has a high variance, but it, I think, clearly shows that filter, the blue function, compared to list comprehension is like 40%, up to 40% slower than list comprehension. Okay, so list comprehension is better, it's faster, it's more concise, more readable. So use list comprehension if you can. And now you can really, you can filter, you can do all kinds of filtering with list comprehension. You can, I've actually written an in-depth article that shows you all the different ways. Like if you want to say filter with, starts with, and ends with, then you can do something like this. I will show you. So you can do this. Yeah, you define a list customers, and it has 4 customers: Alice, Anne, and Tom. And we want to filter out all elements that start with AN. Then we use as condition, so we do exactly the same, x for x in the list, if it starts with some character. So this is our condition now. We can have the ends with as a condition. We can really have even a regular expression as the condition. I will not go into this in this video, but if you are interested in regular expressions, I have a video series on YouTube actually, which you can check out, and I have also many courses explaining regular expressions. We also have a book. It's called The Smartest Way of Learning Python regular expressions, and it's really a very great way to learn regular expressions. So you can also Google this and check this book out if you are really ambitious in becoming a good coder, because regular expression actually belong to the top 5 programming skills any programmer can have. And this is not my opinion, this is the opinion of a former Google tech lead, and he said that regular expressions is really the number 1 skill. He comes from Google. So Google is of course strong in text processing, but even in data science and machine learning, you always need to have good regular expression skills. Each time you work with textual data, you need regular expressions actually. Okay, so now we have this. We can do like this, and if you execute this, you see the result is, in the first time we checked, we want to have all strings that start with AN. In the second part, we want to have all strings that end with the character E. Okay, so you can do all kinds of conditions, and I will stop now because, there are just millions of different conditions you can test. But in general, if you want to filter a list and use list comprehension, X for X in list if condition. And the condition is then just replace it with your custom condition. Okay, thanks for listening and see you in the next video. Bye.